Okay, Ruth, thank you for joining me. Guys, let me introduce, this is Ruth Smyth, Insights and Planning Director.
Absolutely right, yep.
At BoldLight. I really love this agency because you guys focus on the charity sector.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell me, I want to learn more and more about, BoldLight, but before we get into that, tell me about you and how you found your way into research.
Okay. Well, probably like loads of people, it was a bit of a kind of not straightforward path into research. So I actually, at university, I did a mechanical engineering degree. And
did a what?
Mechanical engineering
degree.
Mechanical
engineering.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I kind of thought I wanted to do that, but I wasn't sure what area I wanted to work in. So I went to Boots on their graduate scheme. And I did about 6 months of engineering, and I just realised that I'm not that interested in things. I'm really interested in people. Yeah. So that was good to realise early on.
Who's said that? That's Jordan Peterson.
Oh, really?
I think he said something about things and people, but no.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm definitely in the people zone. So then, because I was on the graduate scheme, I could move into a different sort of area of the business, and I just took a placement in the Advantage Card team. So it's kind of coincidence. And when I started working there, I was really interested in just how you could tell, what people were doing, make decisions based on that, and then experiment. So I just really enjoyed that. And I had a few meetings with people from the kind of customer insight team, and I just thought their job is so cool.
Yeah.
So I didn't kind of go straight into it at that point, but I had a couple of placements, and then when I wanted to change, I think I was kind of looking around for a job that had some of those aspects to it, but also kind of motivated me a little bit more. And a job came up at the RSPB doing basically sort of selecting people to send out sort of appeals to campaigns and stuff like that. And I just thought, I can't believe I get to do this fun job somewhere where, it's also got kind of purpose and meaning. And they were doing lots of really cool stuff around climate change. And at that point, that was sort of newer than it is now. So I went for that job, got it, and really loved that. And I spent quite a number of years.
Yeah, how long was you
there?
Well,
I was actually there for 8 years, but doing various different jobs. And I started off in a team where we were doing lots of like database analysis type work. But I kept kind of getting a bit frustrated with the whole, it's really interesting knowing what they're doing, but why are they doing that?
Yes.
How can I understand that a bit deeper? So that's what really got me into kind of market research, more qualitative stuff. And then I did a psychology degree because I thought I really want to, understand what makes people tick and really learn more about that. And that just seemed like a really good foundation for it. So
where did you get the degree?
So I did that through the Open University. That took me about 8 years. I had
So you did this in tandem?
Yeah. While I was working.
Oh man.
And while I had my first baby.
Oh man, what was that like?
But it was really intense. But the Open University is amazing. Like, there were so many people working, looking after family, people who'd been like carers and hadn't had a chance to do a degree, getting a chance to do it later in life. So I absolutely loved it. I loved the whole experience. And
It must have been hard though.
it was challenging. But I was also really excited about the topic. So you kind of, with the Open University, I don't know if they still do it like this, but you used to get like a package with all the books for the module. And it'd be like Christmas, unwrapping all these things and reading all these books. So I really enjoyed that. And through that, I did kind of a couple of projects that are a bit more kind of qualitative, particularly looking at sort of masculinity. So I did...
Interesting. Oh, go on, your ears pricked up. Tell me about this one.
So the first one was about kind of how masculinity was presented in like popular magazines. So I did kind of analysis of that. And then the second one, I did a qualitative project about stay-at-home dads. So how they kind of navigate what is a very sort of female-dominated and female-designed.
If you can share, what were some of the insights?
One of the things that was sort of quite interesting, I think, was how the stay-at-home dads quite often emphasised that they were still doing something that was a bit work-like, even though they were kind of really full-time dads. So they were doing kind of almost sort of what would be kind of hobbies that they were turning into businesses and things like that. So they were kind of maintaining that sort of work identity that that is tied into this kind of masculine identity, whilst doing that. But yeah, it was. That is
very interesting. I can imagine, I've even thought about, what if I just, focused on the kids and just was at home and there's just, it's not something, and I don't know if it's, maybe I'm just traditional, it's the way I was raised. I just don't feel like I could. But, I have respect for people who do, but I feel like it's got that stigma to it.
Yeah.
Like, even these days, I think there's a stigma to stay-at-home mums as well.
Yeah,
From working women.
I think that's really true, and that was one of the things that when I was reading around the whole topic was actually in today's society there's a whole thing about us being kind of productive in a work sense that's really, really strong and really hard to kind of go against. Yeah.
All right, so you're studying, working, and a new mum at the same time. All right, we got there. What happened next?
So then, basically, I was kind of trying to decide: do I go back to to work for the RSPB after maternity leave? And Chris had set up BoldLight. That's my husband, Chris. Had set up BoldLight kind of two and a half years before that. And while I was on maternity leave, we just kept having conversations about work, and I kept chipping in on projects.
When he set up BoldLight, was it with the same sort of vision as it is now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's evolved a bit like any sort of business does, because that was pretty much 10 years ago. But when he started it, his background is in user experience design and digital.
Right.
And he was probably doing a little bit more of a mix of kind of commercial and charity clients at the start, but more kind of non-profit and charity. And then the more he did it, he kind of realised that's the stuff that I get really enthusiastic about. So it's kind of, changed a bit. And then when I sort of said, oh, actually, maybe I could work with you, then, it changed shape again slightly. So we sort of had to spend a bit of time thinking about how do our different skills work together and what kinds of projects are we going to do really well. And then we've learned from that. And, when you do a project, you either get that feeling that, we're doing a brilliant job on this is the kind of stuff we have to do more of, or you think, I'm not sure, whether that's the kind of thing that we're going to carry on doing. So, it's evolved during that time.
So now do you have your sort of like designated roles then? You're the qualitative, the research, the insights. He's got the user experience and that sort of thing.
And the design side of it.
How big is the team grown now?
So we've got 2 staff, and they're much more on the kind of digital side of stuff. So we've got Carolina, who is designing and building websites, and Alice, who is doing kind of back-end development on websites, so a bit more of a sort of coding and the technical side of it. And we might grow it more. But, you know, it's one of those tricky things where there's a real balance between sort of doing good projects and growing the team. So,
the more you try to grow, the more money you need to grow that team. Then you have to take on certain work that you might not necessarily want to take on, but you're just doing it to try and, you know, so I understand that. So talk me through then how the business works a little bit, because I guess you guys are, you know, unique in the industry in the way that you work and typically the projects that you work on as well. Maybe you can tell me a little bit more about it.
So I guess I think one of the things that works really well for us, and sort of what I think is one of our strengths, is because we've got the kind of the research side of it and the sort of build and develop stuff side together, those really sort of influence each other in a really good way. So the audience understanding is really close to the design side, and similarly when we're doing the research side, we can, you know, create working mock-ups of things, and you know that works really, really well.
I can imagine that being a massive strength actually. Because traditionally it's like multiple companies in the chain then trying to feed into each other to get the outcome. If you have that all in house there, and seamless. Yeah,
it definitely works really, really well. And I think the projects where we feel like often they're our best projects, it's where we've had those things sort of quite well balanced through the project. So we did one for the Wildfowl and Wetland Trust where we were designing a school. Basically, they wanted to do something called Conservation Explorers, where they had schools visit their sites, go round and explore and do different activities, and then upload stuff onto a website. And for that, we kind of went and followed the school kids round on the trip. We saw how they interacted with everything. We built like a working mock-up of the website, and then we took that into the classroom, and that was like really useful, because seeing kind of a group of sort of 6 or 7 year olds all round one tablet working together, we realised we had to design the website in a really specific way. So I think the insight, you know, connecting to what you're trying to do in terms of communication is really powerful.
That makes so much sense. If you're gathering insights, or even like for the creative, for the tech bit that comes afterwards, as you're doing this part, you can already see what you're going to need, and it's having that foresight for the insight. That's
nice phrase.
That was bad. Just off the cuff. I can see up here actually. We'll catch this on the B-roll. But see the different camps, the digital, creative, and the insight.
Yeah, that's us working out our structure for our website, our own website.
That's just the website. So we've talked about BoldLight. We've talked about how you came into research. Tell me, because obviously you guys are unique in, I guess, the way that you're structured. But why the focus on non-profits? Why the focus on causes, rather than just having this approach to all different sectors? Yeah. Where does that come from?
I guess it comes from partly having worked in a sector beforehand. So I think the same motivation that made me go from a corporate into the charity sector is something that, you know, it motivates me at work to think that I'm working on something that's, you know, important. It's going to help people, help the planet. That's a big factor for me in terms of what motivates me to work. And I mean it's a really great sector to work in, because there's a huge amount of variety. So we get to work with lots of different clients on lots of different topics. We have quite a few in the conservation sector. We work with health charities, and they're, you know, looking at really different things. So I think, it's really about sort of motivation and about having passion for what we do. And often in the sort of research side of that, you know, you get to hear these absolutely amazing stories. You know, you talk to people who are, you know, maybe going through a relative having a particular health problem, and sort of understanding what's going on for them and helping the charity help those people just feels really... it's a bit of a cliche to say it, but it's kind of humbling, because you really feel like you're helping something.
It's meaning, isn't it? It's, you know, there's no, like, if you don't have meaning in what it is that you're doing, then what is it?
Yeah,
what are you
totally.
doing? You know, and you see these stories. People who have, you know, got to the very top of the pyramid, let's call it, in their field, and just realised none of what I'm doing means anything to anyone. I'm not helping anyone, and just, you know, that's, you know, money and all of that. That's survival, right? There's a level of it to the point where we need it for survival. Past that is who are you helping?
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely.
So I understand that. I actually relate to that. The projects that I really enjoy are the ones that are like, you know, seldom heard communities or people who typically don't get their voices heard, and then we've given them that opportunity and it feels good.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask about the charities though, because my experience with charities, and I know it's different, but in the UK at least there's a lot of small charities. We try to partner with a lot of charities, and in our field work we actually say to them, you know, for this project that we need to get your audience, we'll give you guys a donation rather than paying it to Doris from Dagenham or whatever. We'll give it to you, and some of them go for it. But what we find is that so many of them are really, really struggling for cash.
Yeah.
You know, they don't actually, they like chomping at the bit for something because fundraising is so difficult. So for you guys, is it quite a struggle to get, you know, budgets to do really good work?
I think that's the biggest sort of challenge in a way is there's always so much that you could do, and the budget very rarely allows you to do all of it. So it's all about, you know, how do you get the most from the budget that's there to do it. And I can't, you know, in some ways I really like that, because I think, you know, it's about really thinking about, it helps you in a way focus. So you're thinking, what question am I trying to answer? Who are the people that I absolutely have to talk to understand the situation? So yeah, it's a challenge, but at the same time it also means that you kind of keep projects fairly tight in terms of scope. But I think there are times when I think, it must be amazing to do research with big budgets. And wouldn't it be lovely if people funded that for charities?
Well, this is it. This is where I wonder if there should be some sort of crossover where, you know, brands have some sort of corporate responsibility to put into research for that sort of thing. Have you guys ever thought about like pushing something like that, or partnering up with brands to get that budget?
Yeah, I mean, I think something like that would be really interesting. We have sort of thought about some of that sort of stuff in the past, and sometimes you get kind of like quite a lot of funding actually goes towards sort of understanding audiences, and so charities are quite often able to apply for bits of funding to do that. So there are sources out there to help support that kind of stuff. I think probably with corporates there maybe could be more done in that sort of area, because I think sometimes, I mean, I'm not in the corporate world very much at the moment, so I don't know kind of what the latest is on it, but in terms of the sort of CSR stuff, sometimes it seems quite like there's a set series of things that they do, and they're not always sort of thinking broader about it. But some do a great job. I mean, we do a lot of work with Alzheimer's research, and they've had kind of corporate partnerships where people have 3D printed brains for them to use in their research stuff, and so there's some really cool imaginative stuff going on as well. So I'm sure there's room for doing even more.
Yeah, that's cool. 3D printed brains. Crazy. All right, so tell me about a research study that you guys have worked on in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
That stands out to you as like, wow, mind-blowing project. No pressure, but
I feel like I want to cheat and basically talk about 3 or 4. No,
that's okay.
I'll try and keep it fairly focused on
just
one.
something that you found really, really interesting. That was, you know, a bit of not your usual.
Okay. Everything's a bit unique, but so one of the ones that we've done recently, which was really nice, we started before Christmas, and that was for the Carers Trust, who they're kind of a body that supports local caring charities throughout the UK, and they were sort of really keen to make sure they were supporting different types of people equally. So they'd started this project, and I got to work with, there's a consultant who works in the fundraising sector called Jazz Nana, who's really lovely, and she'd sort of started this project and brought me in to do the research side, looking at sort of 3 groups. So it was LGBTQ+, people from ethnic minorities, and men. And those 3 groups were not supported as much as other groups by these different organisations. So it was trying to understand sort of those 3 groups, what are the barriers, why aren't they sort of seeking out support from charities, or what's putting them off, or do they not know kind of what's available. So yeah, that was a really fascinating project. I think particularly because when you're doing like minority research, you don't often include men as a minority group.
Although I did see that in a brief the other day,
and
I thought, although that was for something to do with breast scans, which then I was confused,
right,
but then I figured out, of course, people transitioning, and also even men can get, it's rare, but men can get, but typically men is not seen as like a
minority group. But I mean, they're obviously not a minority group, but in terms of kind of understanding what the barriers were, that was really fascinating. So it kind of went right back to that stuff I was doing in my psychology degree, really around kind of the ideas of masculinity, and the fact that being a carer is quite a generally regarded as a sort of more feminine role to do. And there was also a lot of really interesting stuff around people, kind of the word carer being really associated with the sort of professional people coming in and visiting people in their homes and doing it as a job.
So people just not thinking that they are a carer.
Yeah, rather than people who were kind of unpaid or unsupported doing this, for members of their family. So it was really, again, one of those ones where you sort of hear people's stories, and it's just amazing hearing what people are doing. And there was a really nice moment. So one of the groups that I had with male carers in, once they started talking about it, I think they really found that it was nice to kind of share the experience with other people. And at the end of the session, at the end of the sort of online focus group, they all exchanged details so they could keep in touch and support each other. And it was just a really lovely, it was a really lovely moment of like, well, the research is great, but also this has connected a bunch of people.
Got a bunch of friends now. Because it can be tricky, even like being a parent. You become a parent, and all of a sudden, you've got nobody.
Isolated,
all your friends are like going to the pub, So I can imagine if you're a carer, it can be tricky finding your circles. That's really interesting. That's really cute. I like
and the other one I just wanted to nip in because
go for it.
Was we've been doing quite a lot of work around in memory fundraising. So people who donate in memory of a loved one that they've lost. And I had one a couple of months ago where we did it for an animal charity, and they were interested in people giving in memory of their pets. So on that focus group, it felt like the strangest kind of recruitment criteria to say, I need people who've had a family member who's died recently and a pet who's died recently. And I thought I was going to...
they had to have both?
Yeah, because we were testing different ideas that this charity had come up with. So I was thinking these are going to be really, a bit sad and really hard groups to do. And actually, they were really lovely because everyone who'd been through losing a pet, I think, again, in a similar sort of way, it's something that generally in society, I think we underestimate how profound that is for people to lose a pet that they're close to. And so people kind of talking about that and sharing those experiences and talking about things that, about their pets that were lovely habits that had made them laugh and things like that, was really lovely. And then we ran through like that one. It was kind of different ideas for fundraising that people gave feedback on, and it was great. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, so we get involved in all sorts of different research projects.
It sounds really the projects that you're working on seem like they're the ones that are the heartwarming ones. I understand why you want to focus on them. For anyone looking, and I know this is just like off the cuff, but for anyone watching who is not in the industry or thinking about getting in the industry, what would you say are the top 3 things about working in research?
In research, Oh, that's a really tricky one. I think you have to be curious. I think that's probably sort of the number one thing is kind of curiosity, particularly about people, going back to that people and things. Yeah. It's about, what motivates people, what are people's different experiences like, not, trying really, we all do it to a certain extent, but trying really, really hard not to prejudge and to be open and curious. Yeah. So I think that would be like my number one. I think the second thing is kind of communication skills, and that is both in terms of listening and doing the interviewing side, but really, really important in communicating back to the client
what you've actually found. Yeah.
And that's, I think, that's where a project can really easily fall down, and I feel like a huge responsibility on projects where I've spoken to a bunch of people, they've given up their time, and when they're carers or something like that, it's precious time, to try and convey that to the client as well as you can. And
you want to do them justice as well. Yeah. They've just given you this insight that is potentially going to change people's lives. It's a responsibility then to make sure it gets delivered in the right way.
Yeah, definitely. And then I guess the other thing is sort of continuously learning, because I think, because it's sort of, I guess, a social science, you're constantly, culture's changing, the environment that people are in is changing. So it's, being open to that and learning and developing your skills as you go through as well. I don't know if that's just my bias, because I'm the kind of person that likes to dabble in loads of different things and learn loads of new things, and that's worked for me.
I agree with you though, because especially in market research, and it's one of the things that people love about it so much is the variety of the stuff that we get to do. Every 2 weeks, it's a different topic, it's a different thing. So if you're someone who gets bored easily, this is the thing for you. It works really, really well.
Definitely.
All right, so wrapping up then, tell me about the plans that you guys. I know we mentioned, I think before we were rolling, I don't remember, that the plan is not to grow. But what are your plans for the future?
Wow, I guess it's partly about sort of doing more of what we love. So those kind of projects where I was saying, where we put together the insight and the creative side. I think we feel like we've sort of developed some things on the digital side that are really great tools that people are using that actually we've been a bit quiet about. So we could probably, develop those and talk a bit more about those.
Can we talk about them now?
I'm being like a bit ambiguous there, aren't I?
What tools?
Well, we build and we have built websites for charities, and in doing that, we've developed things like donation forms and campaigning tools and things like that. And we've kind of done that in a fairly bespoke sort of, a client asks us to do something, we think about it, we design it, we build it. And I guess we're thinking we could do more to sort of sell that a little bit more and say, this is what we've done, a bit more broadly. I guess the other area that we're sort of, we're keen to do more on is sort of maybe sharing our skills and knowledge a little bit. So I do a few training courses, and I've been doing them for a while. So one is on communicating insight, and one is sort of introduction to fundraising insight. So it's like a sort of, here's all the different things you can do to understand your audiences. And I really love those. I really love doing training courses and kind of, that two-way thing of people learning stuff and bringing in their ideas. And so I think, there's probably more that I would like to do on that side, but I'm the kind of person that has lots of different ideas and not enough time to do them all. But I think that would be, but that would be really lovely to do more of. So I guess finding a way to sort of do that alongside working. And I think it would be nice to do, because I don't, there's lots of people that deliver training, but I think we can do it alongside sort of all the practical experience that we can then feed into, you know, here's what's going on at the moment, and here's how we've applied it. So,
and I think coming from you is there's the social element of it as well.
Yeah.
That whole audience of people who actually want to do some good in the world can then see how research is actually linked to that.
Yeah.
That so that's really cool.
Yeah, that would be really nice. So I don't quite know, you know, whether that will all be charity sector or whether it might widen out a bit. But yeah, it feels like there's some really exciting things we could do in that area.
Ruth, it's been a real pleasure.
Oh,
thank you so much for having us up in rainy Bedford.
I know. I was going to go and show you like the lovely river and the town, and yesterday it was beautifully sunny. But
the river might be flooded now. We'll go and see if we can have a look at it. But no, it's been a real pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
So much.
Thanks for coming. It's been brilliant.
Excellent.